commentary on, the Sony situation, and the no disc, no buy movement. You gamers who defend this make me ill. You disgust me. I have a question, though, at this point. How are you such a fucking fool? All of us who have survived the last 20 years, how have you missed headlines about streaming platform after streaming platform revoking people's access to content that was formerly promised to them with their purchase? How have you missed Sony specifically revoking access to so much content people paid for on their own platforms? How have you survived to this point and still trust Sony? The thing that makes me take this stance, that has me up in arms about Sony's decision to end physical media, is that it's quite simply this: they cannot take a disc away from you. Once you have it, it's over. It's yours. You want to know why I want the quote extra steps, as unquote, as one defender put it, when it comes to this, and when it was so convenient to simply switch executables that were running and to download my games? Why would I want to have to get up and swap cartridges or disk? Because the alternative is handing them the ability to revoke my access to it for any reason that they deem fit. At least with Valve, even though they can revoke it, technically, they almost never actually do, unless terms of service are breached or payment is proven fraudulent. A developer will rarely ever ask them to do this, but that can also be a process that it happens with. Even when they delist things, they don't revoke your content, your access to content you paid for. At least they haven't so far. And why they can revoke, they've built up institutional goodwill by simply rarely ever doing so and generating headlines about it. Sony, however, has generated a lot of bad will. Article after article about news story about them taking away access to content people played for, like with the Studio Canal situation. And then on top of everything else, GOG sells you ownership over DRM-free executables, which, by the way, you can burn to disk if you want to create physical out of it. You're more than welcome to do so with that. At least over there in their world, all digital is a world where they can't do it. You know, why have I not changed when there was a much more convenient way to play? Simple. I've been paying attention. Where the fuck have you been if you're defending this shit? Asleep? You must have been if you still trust Sony with revocable licenses. You're a fool if you do, and I am wise to this bullshit, and so I'm with the protest. The fact of the matter is that I would have been with you. A number of years ago, I would have been like, you know what, solidarity, all digital. But you know what shifted? As somebody pointed out, they can't take physical away from you. Really, that's what it all boils down to. I don't fucking trust Sony with an all digital future. I might trust Valve, but that's because Valve is Valve and Valve operates the way they do. Sony is a completely different animal.